If it's okay to you that migrant children are being separated from their parents at the border and being put in detention camps, if that's okay with you, I need you to do me a favor and don't claim to be Christian, don't read the Bible, and don't go to church. Because you are a hypocrite, a liar, and a phony, and a fraud. Least Coast Radio. Joke about rising fascism in America and the fall of democracy, I really thought I was being, like, over the top.
Staten Island niggas still puffing dust plus representing Staten Island.
I mean, like, all kidding aside, I'm a high school dropout. I never thought the words autocracy and kleptocracy would be in my vernacular. I just never thought that would be a thing.
Staten Island niggas still puffing dust plus.
It's very, very difficult and frustrating to have progressive ideology living on Staten Island, or as I call it, North Texas. Example, your weed dealer pulls away and he's got a Trump Pence hat sitting on his back windshield. This is real life.
Representing Staten Island. Staten Island niggas still puffing dust plus.
The most important thing you can do for me listening to this podcast is to not get sidetracked with distractions and nonsense. There is a person occupying the Oval Office who has committed crimes every single day of his life. And the only way to combat this is not to look at polls. It's to go vote in November.
Staten Island niggas still puffing dust plus. Representing Staten Island.
Want to hear a little story about some of those people who are going to be voting in November? I'll tell you. People that value guns over children. People who think the South will rise again. People that think ending slavery was a failed experiment. White nationalists.
Representing Staten Island. Staten Island niggas still puffing dust plus.
Be a part of ending the rise of fascism and the fall of democracy in America by keeping it locked to Least Coast Radio, Dyze in your house, and hit the polls in November. Hey, yo! Who's in the house? Dyze in your house. What goes on, peeps? It is Friday. It is the afternoon. And we are back with a brand new action-packed edition of Dyze in your house here on Least Coast Radio. That's Least Coast Radio for the least heard voices. The least heard voices like myself. So I'm going to break down a little bit. Today, first of all, if you don't like hearing about children being separated from their families, then skip this episode. But before you skip this episode because you're a hateful person, I just want to give you guys a little preview about something. First of all, if there was more of a time than ever to keep it locked to Least Coast Radio and to all things J Parks Podcast, it would be now. Because this Monday, on the J Parks Podcast, and again, there may be some of that appears on the J Parks Podcast will probably run here on Least Coast Radio, but we have the biggest show ever. I'm not going to spoil it because the episode isn't recorded yet, and, you know, if a ton of bricks falls on my head, I don't want to have teased the greatest thing in the world and then it not happen. But let me just tell you this. I don't know how I pulled this. I don't know how I did it. I don't know how it came to fruition. But it is going to be an informal discussion about a lot of things that I already talk about week in, week out on the J Parks podcast. So, I mean, listen, it's going to be fun. I can't tell you what it is. I'm just saying it's going to be the best, most important episode of the J Parks podcast there ever will be. So you really need, and if you don't want to subscribe on iTunes or whatever, follow me on Twitter at JayPorks. JayPorks. That's where you'll follow me, and you'll find all of the good stuff, all of the stuff I'm sharing, all podcast previews and all that stuff, the ones I can give to you. Not giving you a preview for Monday, I'm just telling you that it is going to be the greatest of all time, Daddy-o. Really, seriously, like, I don't know. You're not even going to believe it. Like, so keep it locked to me, J Parks, on the J Parks podcast, and Dyze in your house. Okay, intros aside, I got a new intro. I did it. Look at me. How good am I? I'm technologically savvy enough to morph sound bites together. I did it. Rocky. No, not Rocky. It's Adrian, right? I'm bad at jokes. I promise you that I have to open up Monday's podcast really hot and like the best it's ever been to be prepared for this. But let's talk about what's going on at the border right now. The fascist regime running our country has made it policy to separate families, meaning if a mother and a daughter, or a mother or a son come across the border, illegally obviously, if they come seeking asylum, it doesn't matter, they come seeking asylum, they come, they get their children taken away from them and put into detention centers. Tent cities is what they're calling it. This is not, and before you right-wing maniacs start saying that, well, the Democrats should have done something about this. This is Trump regime policy. This is policy of the White House under this fascist ruler, under our Fuhrer. This is what's going on. They are ripping children away from their parents. And I gotta be honest, that's not the worst part of it. Tent cities. I mean, I don't know of any places where people of a certain credence or a certain background may have been detained before. I can't think. It's on the tip of my... Concentration camps? Again. Like when Trump got elected, we all made these boisterous jokes about, oh, he's Hitler. Oh, there's gonna be, detention centers, and he's gonna deport everyone, and he's gonna do all this crazy stuff. And those were jokes. That was late night comedy. You can't be serious with this. Have you seen the videos? I encourage you. You need to go online and you need to see these videos. Maybe they're not intense. It's called a detention center, where the children, the undocumented children who are seeking asylum from the countries they live in because they're being taken advantage of by drug cartels and child human sex traffickers and stuff like that. They come here seeking asylum, and their parents get thrown in prison, and they get thrown in what is essentially kid prison. It's prison. 5 beds to a room. They are inside the detention center for 22 hours a day. Now, I'm no math genius, But I'm just going to tell you that in a day, there are 24 hours. So if you take away those 22 hours of being locked inside a detention center with a wristband on, every time you go get your food, you get your wristband scanned again. Like, all right, if you want to detain kids, if you think that this is the right policy, why do you need to keep track of how many meals they're getting? Like, I know that those wristbands aren't to keep track of how many meals the children are getting because so the children can stay nourished. It's to find out how much money they're spending on this. Now, why is feeding children have to be something that we think about in America in 2018? And why are we ripping these children away from their parents? They're seeking asylum. It's unreal. And you have to Google some of the images. They are set up. There are children in cages. Now, I know you're going to say, well, they're not actually in cages, Jay. They're in rooms. Yeah, what it looks like a jail. It looks like a jail for, like, not non-violent offenders, you know? Looks like drug rehab. That's what it looks like. It looks like daytop. You got beds, plain, and the White House says that they're getting education. Yeah? Because I saw some kid with his desk facing the wall doing a worksheet. I didn't see any teacher. Is that education? They're getting educated in their native language. Who talks like that? And Jeff Sessions, Jefferson Beauregard Sessions, Mr. I did not have any meetings with any Russian cutouts or entities during the campaign at any point during the campaign. And I was a surrogate for the campaign, and I am also a big fat liar. Jeff Sessions is citing the Bible. The Bible. He's citing something from Leviticus to justify taking children away from their parents. It's something to the effect of the law, you know, like the government is an extension of God. So if you break the law, you are disobeying God or something. I don't know what the quote is. Today was my last day of Catholic school. Thank you very much. I'm out. But the next line, I mean, you just got to continue reading the quote, because the next line is like, and we are all God's people. So, like, I mean, your whole thing is shot. And Sarah Huckabee Sanders shutting down that reporter in the White House pool. Let me tell you something. And this goes to all the journalists in the press pool. Because I gotta be honest, I live on Staten Island, and like you heard in the intro, I got that little Chris Hayes soundbite, and it says, you know, definitely representing Staten Island. He was talking about Michael Grimm and Dan Donovan. Now, I heard Dan Donovan was going to be somewhere on my way home, and I went on my way home today. I was looking for Dan Donovan. I did not see him. I forgot where it was. It was somewhere on my way home. Maybe it was too early because I left work at like 8 o'clock in the morning. But, like, if I ever see Dan Donovan on the street, like, I'm going to ask him why he supports a criminal. Why is he taking the endorsement of a criminal sitting in the Oval Office? A criminal that got there by not so uncriminal means, if you get what I'm saying. And do you support, and how does Dan Donovan, because I've met Dan Donovan, he came to St. Teresa. He came to the school and talked to these 8th graders right after he voted against the tax cuts. And what's Trump do? Trump endorses him because he says he voted with me on tax cuts. No, he didn't, you idiot. You're such a moron. I mean, I just don't get where we're going in society anymore. You know what I'm saying? Where people are actually justifying separating children from kids. And back to Sarah Huckabee Sanders in the press pool. There was a journalist who stood up and he said, Sarah, you're a mother. How can you defend the blah, blah, blah? And she just next questioned him. I'm not going to stand here so you can get a sound bite. Listen, how about another person in that press pool who might call themselves a journalist? How about somebody stand up and stick up for this guy? How about somebody stand up and say, no, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, you're a fucking liar, and you're lying to the American people every fucking day. Why? When is someone gonna do that? This is the fourth estate. You know why they don't do that? Ratings. Because the fourth estate, journalists, media companies are very complicit. Not as complicit as other entities, but they are complicit in this whole Trump bullcrap that's going on. Ran his rallies live on television. Billions of dollars in advertising. Billions of dollars in free advertising. Because there's no way he'd win, right? And Sarah Huckabee Sanders stands up there, and I said a couple of weeks ago, and she's good at her job because Trump tells her to go out there and lie, and she goes out there and lies, and she sticks to the lies. So she's good at her job. She's not good at being a human. And she might be good at being a mother to her own kids, but it's disgusting that someone who's had children can stand up at a podium and support policy that takes children away from their parents. And by the way, these aren't criminals. These are asylum seekers. These are people who are trying to escape human trafficking, drug cartel, corrupt governments. I mean, listen, if you're trying to escape the corrupt government, coming to America might not be your best bet right now, but... And then you sit there and right-wing pundits say, well, you see, things like this are a deterrent because, look, less Mexicans are crossing the border. But remember when the National Guard was going to go to the border? Remember that? Remember when the graphs were out that the less people were coming across the border anyway? Less people have been coming across the border since 2000. It's about half of what it was in 2000. So don't you fucking tell me that we have this immigration problem from the southern border. If you want to say that there are some people who, when immigrating to this country from dangerous countries that have had terrorism, form there, terrorist groups form there, if you want to give these people a background check before they come to America, I'm not saying that that's a thing that's wrong, Make sure someone's safe before they come to America. At the same time, people crossing the desert, swimming across a river to try to get to America from Mexico, that is not the same thing. Those people aren't dangerous. Jay Porks, Dyze in your house.